So welcome. It is the fourth webinar today of the Education Leadership Network Europe. This is a network which is focusing about collaborative education leadership and democratic decision-making, where everyone, parents, students, school heads, teachers, and other stakeholders of the schools should have an equal role in decision-making. In the network, we have 100 official partners, but we are always welcome to receive more members, and you can follow our activities in the ELNE website. As I said, we have 100 partners, but actually there are 5 lead organizations who are the cornerstones of the network, who are education employers, EFI, who is coordinating the project, ETUCE, which is the umbrella organization of teacher trade unions, EPA, who is the parents associations, ESHA, the school head associations, and OBESSU, the secondary school students. And we try to bring them together here to discuss about a topic. As you could see as participants, and we are 31 person at the moment, but I think more colleagues will join us. You are muted and both your video and camera are off. But at the same time, we would like to motivate you to take an active role in the webinar, and there is lots of opportunities. How you can see on the top of the screen, chat and Q&A. You are very warmly welcome to share your experience or to have questions to any of the presenters. But we will also would like to open Slido polls, and we would like to ask your opinion on certain questions and to discuss among us about these questions. Vocational education is a core sector and policy of the European Commission. We are all here, organizations are involved in kind of shaping the European Commission policy and national policies on vocational education. One of the issues is that still in some countries, vocational education is not so much attractive, not so much wished by students and parents to attend, but also there is a shortage of the vocational teachers in the vocational sector. And this is why under the topic of the network, we considered it important to discuss in this network about attractiveness of studying and working in vocational education and training, the role of collaborative school leadership. I would like to welcome all the speakers. Irene Psifidou from CEDEFOP, Joaquim Santos from the Portuguese National Federation of Teacher Trade Unions, FNE, Nathan Weber from the Secondary School Student Association, OBESSU, Arja Krokenberg from the European Parents Association, and Nora Pilici-Kiene, sorry for the pronunciation, the Association of Lithuanian Vocational Education and Training Institutions, representing also a member organization of the education employers, EFI. Before I give the floor to our presenters, I would like to open the first Slido poll because it would be really useful to get to know who we are here. Now already 36 people, more and more. I would like to ask to open it. And the question is, please tell us about your daily job. So where do you work? Early childhood education, which sector? I would like also quickly to answer. And I'm sorry I didn't introduce myself because it's already the second webinar I'm moderating today. I am Agnes Roman, the Senior Policy Coordinator of ETUCE, the umbrella organization of teacher trade unions. And while you are answering this important question, who you are, where you are working, I would like to ask Rena from CEDEFOP to take the floor because we asked you to talk us about CEDEFOP's work on overcoming shortages of vet staff in the vocational sector and what kind of support vocational institutions, staff and management could receive via your already existing research and future research.
Oh, thank you so much, Agnes, for this invitation today. It's a great pleasure for me. You see a bit the title of my presentation, and you may assume that I will be talking about the continuing professional development and its role to increase the attractiveness of the teaching profession and to also address teacher shortages. You may know that CPD, the way that I will be addressing continuing professional development, is acknowledged not only as a tool to improve the performance of teachers and students, but as a way also of improving teachers' job satisfaction, their well-being, also with the potential to reduce their workload and improve teacher retention rates. And of course, CPD is also an important means to empower collaborative leadership, which is the key topic of the discussion today. At CEDEFOP, as Agnes said, we undertake important research work to support evidence-based policy making for high-quality CPD for all VET professionals, meaning school principals, teachers, and trainers. So today I will briefly, very briefly, present you some key points drawn from both CEDEFOP's work, but also some new data that just came from the Education and Training Monitoring 2023 that was recently published. The challenge of an aging profession, as you may know, gets progressively worse from primary to lower secondary to upper secondary education. And teacher shortages is a fact for all European countries, as reported in the Education Training Monitoring Report, with a dramatic increase in some countries. To give you just a single example of Slovakia, the lack of teachers is estimated to rise from 1,300 to almost 8,600 in 2025. These teacher shortages vary from one subject to another, or when we talk about vocational education and training, from one sector to another. And of course, geographically, you may imagine that those more remote areas or more disadvantaged areas, they're lacking more teachers. In general, there are shortages, quite severe shortages in teachers regarding science, technology, engineering, mathematics, foreign languages, which is a huge issue now also with migration, and informatics, obviously because often the teaching profession for the informatics specialist is not very attractive, as in the private sector they could make better money. Linked to that, also there is a persisting lack of qualified teachers across EU, which is, as you may understand, associated with a decline in student performance. Well, this all makes, of course, the topic of empowering the continued professional development of VET professionals to be a key priority at EU level. But what challenges the attractiveness of the teaching profession? Why we have a teacher shortages? Of course, one is the aging population, but there are also more reasons. And the research shows that high workloads and long hours are actually main reasons for teachers leaving the profession. What we found from a pilot survey that we undertake back in 2022, it was that the work of principals, and to a lesser extent, but also this of teachers and trainers, is a source of stress with negative effect on their physical and mental health. So this is another important reason for teachers considering leaving the profession. But also the status, the appreciation, the prestige of the teaching profession is very important to consider. And it seems that only 17.7% of teachers across EU countries report that their profession is valued. And last but not least, teacher salaries are 10.5% lower compared to the average tertiary educated workers. So if you are working as a teacher and you have a higher education qualification, you get 10% lower salary of another person who has a different job and he is a tertiary educated worker. Some fresh data coming from this pilot survey of CEDEFOP shows that novice professionals do not feel fully prepared when they first take up their profession. So, for example, principals said that often are not feeling prepared for financial management, for leadership, which is, as I said, the focus of today's discussion, and for conflict solving. Also, over half of teachers did not feel ready for collaborating with employers. We also found from this pilot survey that although all these different VET professionals involved in leadership and in teaching, they did spend a lot of time in continuing professional development. However, most of it was informal, it was peer learning, whether formal CPD was much less accessible to all of them. And the main obstacle making this less accessible was the lack of financial support. Still questions about what types of continuing professional development could be most effective also for promoting, empowering collaborative leadership, for improving the performance of teachers, or for maintaining and retaining teachers in the teaching profession. Still, these questions call for more research, and that's why at CEDEFOP we have already started preparations to launch in 2025, in the academic year 25-26, a pan-European survey of vet teachers that will focus on the challenges, opportunities about continuing professional development of vet teachers in Europe. So that was all based on the time available given to me, and I'm very happy to answer to any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Reina. Until you close your presentation, just a question for clarification. How many countries will be involved in this new survey?
We plan to cover all European member states. For the time being, we have 18 member states who have already confirmed their participation, but we still have almost a year to try to make a good campaign and convince all countries to be part of the survey.
Thank you very much. So all of us have still some job to do to motivate our ministries to be involved. Please Let us know maybe in the chat which countries are missing, so maybe we as stakeholders can motivate them better. Until you do that, I would like to ask the colleagues to share with us the result of the first Slido about who we are here. Okay. 23% of us are working in vocational education, then trade unions, employers, research institutes, students' organizations. Some colleagues came from the early childhood education. Is great because our previous webinar was about early childhood education and secondary education. Excellent. Thank you very much. I would like to motivate the participants to write their questions and comments in the chat. So I would like to give the floor to the second speaker, Joaquim Santos from the Portuguese Teacher Trade Unions, whom we asked to speak about the challenges and solutions to tackle staff shortages in the vocational sector in Portugal, with collaboration within and beyond vocational institutions.
Thank you very much. So first of all, I'm going to talk to you about some general challenges for VET. And some of those are digital transition and climate change, growth of artificial intelligence, diversity and inclusion, migrations and conflicts, constantly evolving jobs and markets, need for good integration between education and training, and between economy and work, skills, reskilling and upskilling, a need to work with specific local, regional phenomena and needs, issues of financing education systems and models for regulating education, issues of internal organization or flexible management of the curriculum, professional autonomy of school leaders and teachers, as we can see, for example, in ETUC policy paper on school leadership, and of course, issues of the attractiveness of the teaching profession. In all of these, collaborative leadership and culture, together with the participation of stakeholders in the policy process, are fundamental. The more leadership is distributed among middle management bodies and teachers, the better. Another advantage is that collaborative leadership necessarily leads to teacher leadership in school institutions. Some issues on the attractiveness of the teaching profession. The Education and Training Monitor 2023 mentions a shortage of teachers in almost all the national reports for 2023, including Portugal. And why? In my opinion, the umbrella of this issue is the lack of attractiveness of the teaching profession, salaries, working conditions, careers, and so on. An aging teaching workforce, as for example in Greece, in Portugal, Baltic countries, and Hungary, the workload and bureaucratization of the profession, a low perception of the teaching profession, the number of graduate teachers is falling. And for example, in Portugal, we feel a lack of foreign language teachers and ICT teachers, and a high underrepresentation of immigrant teaching staff. What shall we do? Ensure continuous professional development for principals, teachers, trainers, monitors, and workers in general, implement a lifelong learning system, ensure high quality, attractive VET, with proper support for institutions, their leadership and their human resources, teachers, trainers, and monitors. The participation of trade unions in this is quite essential. Making VET a first choice is something that we need in most of all European countries. Just to remember, during the pandemic, vocational qualifications were the foundation of economies and societies. Collaborative leadership and strong, genuine social dialogue will be able to respond to the challenges much better than leadership concentrated in one person. Collaborative leadership improves work organization, motivation, and productivity. Collaborative leadership fosters creativity and boosts social and emotional skills. VET needs to focus on skills that are difficult to digitize and automate. Some challenges in VET in Portugal are the following: connecting older people to the modern world. Only 12% of older people have a vocational degree against almost 50% of younger people. Reducing the generation gap in the skills best suited to the knowledge society, more opportunities for integration and training in the workplace, making VET accessible to all, implement a collaborative culture in institutions, and, for example, in my country, unworthy salaries drive highly qualified young people to immigrate.
Thank you very much, Joachim. I guess all participants have some comments on your very important presentation, but I would like to give the floor to the second presenter. And before doing that, I would like to ask the participants to answer to the second Slido poll, which I would like to colleagues to open. So the second Slido poll is asking your opinion. What do you think are the biggest challenges in the vocational education training sector in your country nowadays? For pupils, for learners, for parents, for staff, for management, etc. So I would like to ask your opinion, and later we will show this opinion. But during that time, until you are answering, I would like to give the floor to the student representative, Nathan Weber, whom we asked to present us that there are indeed staff shortages, and it has a huge impact on students. It's not only about the attractiveness of vocational education and training, but when finally you are in the sector, in the school, how do you learn if there are not enough teachers or not enough good teachers who are able to go to professional development courses and update their knowledge in order to prepare you for the work life and also for being a democratic citizen. I would like then to give the floor to Nathan for your presentation.
Hi, first of all, thank you for inviting me and thank you for this meeting. So as you mentioned, I'm representing OBESSU. I'm a board member in the organization, which is a network of over 35 independent, democratic and nationwide school student unions in Europe. I want to mention that I was an apprentice in France, and I will give some insights about the situation there, but also on other countries that are also part of our network. And you can find some of the things I will mention in one of the reports that we will publish in March within our project Inclusivity, in the mapping report that outlines the traditional and alternative way of engagement within the VET system. So to start, I want to mention first that it's mostly linked on what we've been able to see and the feedbacks we had from our member organizations to the working and study conditions. So the impact of staff shortages to start is creating worsened student condition. For example, because there is less continuity in the education and the training, especially in the curricula. We see that there is some teachers or trainers that are not replaced when they leave, whether during the year or at the end of the year. And I think that this was already mentioned, but it's also caused by a degradation of working conditions for the staff members, and a global degradation in general of public services as a result of those ultra-liberal policies that we've seen both at national and European level. The thing is, with the students especially, I think that it's very important to link it also with the involvement to the decision making. I think there is no room for involvement, whether we talk about accessibility to know, to have information about what are the different possibility of getting involved, but also in the sense that we talk most of the time about representation and not about decision making, and we lack a lot of room for being involved in the decision making at the local level, whether it is in the schools and in the training centers, but also in the companies and at the different levels, also at regional level, at national level, and even European level. And we face a lot of tokenism, this I can tell you, and this doesn't help at all for us also to encourage the younger people to get engaged. There is a big lack of civic education and overall democratic education, especially in VT and apprenticeship sector. It's way more. There is way less civic education than in the general secondary education system. I can tell also because I was both in France, and I can tell from our members that have been giving us input. I can also say that it's not the only challenge we face, and with this I will also link with the different countries I was mentioning. I think it's also that students doesn't feel listened when they have things to say. So it's indeed linked to the decision making, but also to the staff shortages in the sense that there is not enough people and relevant people to talk to. By example, about the risks, whether on the training center, in the school, or in the workplace. And I can mention the example of Italy, where we unfortunately lost two students and maybe even more, but from the numbers we have, Giuseppe Lenocci, which was a VET student, and Giuliano De Seta, an apprentice, they both died on the workplace, and they were, so one a VET student and the other one an apprentice, and this is because of a lack of security and risk prevention, education, and this is also linked to those problems I was mentioning about the student conditions in general. In France, by example, where I come from, the orientation system from middle school doesn't provide students with a real choice in orientation. I can say that the studies in VT are very undervalued, and that's most of the time they will tell you based on your social background, socioeconomic background, and based only on your grades, whether you should go in VT or general education. And you find a lot of people that are in university and that should or want to be in VT, and in the opposite way as well. And I can mention in Denmark also, by example, that educators are not enough qualified, also because there is a big competition between being an educator, trainer, and working between the public sector and the training sector, in the private sector. You can see that sometimes you get paid way more in the private sector. So it's also linked to the working condition that was already mentioned by our colleagues. To sum up and wrap up, and I hope I'm still in the time. So if I was too long. I think also it's very important to listen to the students and to the workers. So because we are both as VT and as apprentices, we know that employers will focus more on the staff and on profit and how the companies is working and all. But I think if you focus also more on seeing us as equal, and as it's equally important to involve us in the decision making at each level, you can also improve at every level how we will actually get our grades and the degrees, and how it works in the companies and all those things. I think it can only work better if there is equal recognition, equal respect at every level, and so equal inclusion in the decision making, especially of students, apprentices. Yeah, that's it. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Nathan. It was very important what you were saying, that indeed, like, it's important to trust each other, and it is also important to give voice to those who are in the bottom, so the students and workers, in order to be involved in decision making. And I'm really sorry about the cases you mentioned about the deaths of some apprentices, just because there were lack of staff and lack of really safety, security on risks. And this is a big problem. And indeed, we are not only talking about initial vocational education training here, but we have to also talk about the apprenticeships in companies, which are closely linked, the practical learning. And we should come back to the questions and comments also to you. But I would like to ask Arya, I would like to give you the floor about what is the parents' perspective, because I think it's not so much different from the students. The issue is still about attractiveness of the vocational education training, why certain parents consider that this and that school would be more preferable for the future of the students, not only from job-related perspective, but also how help the learner to be really a growing human, as we discussed in the previous webinar in early childhood education. So what is your opinion on how to really have more collaboration and the voice of teachers to be heard in order to tackle, for example, different problems in vocational education, including staff shortages? The floor is yours, and I understand you have a presentation to share.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Agnes. Thank you for inviting me and for having me here today. As you can see, I don't only represent the European Parents Association here today, but more specifically the Viennese Parents Association of Higher and Middle Schools, because we are very much involved also with vocational education and training. We have heard already quite a lot about the challenges that we are facing. And of course, the topic of security and safety that Nathan just mentioned is very important also for parents. That would be the lack of such measures or any kind of provision in that case would absolutely bring parents to not wanting their children to engage in such a road, of course. But as we have heard a lot about the problems and the challenges, I wanted to share with you a little bit the positive aspects. And you might be aware that Austria is a country where vocational education and training is really well established. I've brought you here a scheme, a representation of the Austrian school system. So here on the left-hand side, you have the ages. Yeah, we start at the age of 6 and then go up, and then we have primary school, then we have lower secondary. You need not be concerned with that. But when we look at the upper secondary level, so from 14 to almost 19 years, I have circled you here the only part that is in Austria academic secondary school, yeah, the upper secondary academic level. And you can see that all the rest over here is concerning vocational education and training. So you do understand that this is a very important sector in Austria. And I've also brought you some numbers from the Austrian student population in 2022-23. So overall, we have a little more than 1 million students in school. 360,000 approximately go to primary school. Then we have 340,000 approximately that go to lower secondary school. And then where it becomes really interesting, at least for us, is the comparison between the general academic and the VET sector. Yeah. You can see that the general academic in comparison is only a quarter and 3/4 of school students at the age of 14, 15 go to some kind of vocational education and training. And There are different sorts of vocational education and training. I've mentioned the three most important ones down here. One is the part-time vocational school and apprenticeship. That was also mentioned just before. Apprenticeship that goes between 2 and 4 years is a very important sector, almost the same as the vocational education high school, which is 5 years in Austria, so between 14 and 19 years. In between, we also have this intermediate school that runs for 3 years. That is a sector that gets less and less students, evidently, because it's considered as not a really complete professional nor academic education. Very briefly, I would like to mention one special case, which is the most western region of Austria, which is called Vorarlberg. It's close, as you can see here on the map, to Germany here in the north, Switzerland in the south, and Liechtenstein here on the west. And it is a bit of a special case. Then it has more than 40% of 15 years old that choose an apprenticeship. And actually, that's a decline, because when I first got in touch with them back in the years, I think it was 2016, they still had more than 50% of 15 years old choose an apprenticeship. That has shifted a little bit to this vocational high school, because that's considered maybe the more prestigious of the different vocational sectors. But how come that here we have such a huge number of young people going for vocational education and training? 80% actually of the whole student population of 15 years old. And why is there such a interest also for apprenticeships? First of all, because there are excellent job opportunities afterwards. There's a very good reputation of the companies that are involved and the vocational schools. There's mutual support and cooperation between those two institutions, the schools and the companies. And then there is institutional support from the Chamber of Economics and the Chamber of Employees equally. Yeah. So they face less teacher and trainer shortage than elsewhere due to this long-standing tradition of cooperation. Also because of increased training facilitation, respecting and valuing of teachers and trainers' jobs by parents and the society in general. I think the survey that was mentioned before, that only 17% of teachers felt valued, I think that plays a very important role. And this is something that has to be changed in society as such. Media also plays a very important role in this sector. So a close cooperation here is absolutely necessary. The challenges that they still face there is that there are very good job opportunities for teachers and trainers in the surrounding countries. Remember, we all speak German in Germany, Switzerland, also Liechtenstein, which makes it very easy to go and work in a different country. And especially, and I don't think that's a surprise to you, salaries for teachers in Switzerland and Liechtenstein are well above the level of Austria. So we also have this problem with teachers' salaries. So here I've brought you also the numbers of the country of the region of Vorarlberg, so that you can see a little bit the difference. So, as I said before, 25% in average in Austria go to general academic upper secondary. In Vorarlberg, it's only 20%, while as 80%, oops, sorry, what did I do here? Whereas 80% actually opt for vocational education and training. So this is an example of how it can work, things that do work, and maybe through peer learning, exchanging exchange programs where people can see how things work in different countries, we could encourage also other countries to improve their vocational education and training systems, making it more attractive. But I do believe that a lot of it also goes through the fact that we have a a good acceptance for that in society in general. And that, of course, includes parents. When I talk to parents in other countries, especially in the South, I must say that there is a big difference between North and South. Many people will say to me, no, but I want my child to go to university, because this is still seen as the best way of fulfilling your potential. Well, it is not. I don't think it is. And what we also see in Austria is that the permeability of the system, so the possibility also from a vocational education and training to later on go to University of Applied Sciences or to university as such, these ways must be kept open. That's very important for parents to allow their children to engage in this kind of training, and that also makes it more attractive for teachers and trainers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Arya. And of course, we should discuss after the presentation of the last presenter, also the issue of course, if there is a good region, a good economically developing region, and there are good industries and good jobs, it's quite easy to choose vocational education. But if there is a school, and there are schools, but there are no industries, because there is a lot of social economically underdeveloped regions in the European Union. The parents don't have crystal ball, neither the skills of having research on forecasting jobs and future skills of choosing for their kids, for their children, a good vocational profession. But let's discuss about this maybe a little bit later, and I would like to give the floor to Nora from the Lithuanian Association of Vocational Education and Training Institutions, which is an FE member, the Education Employers. And I asked her to try to focus on the impact of staff shortages in the sector from the perspective of education management, and how can these staff shortages be solved in different ways. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Hello to everyone. Thank you, Agnes, and thank you everybody for invitation to have me here. I'm here to talk a couple of minutes about the impact of staff shortages in that on education managers. How do we deal here in school with staff shortages, and how do we find the solution with stakeholders? I will talk about my country, Lithuania, and take an example, my school, Karalius Mindaugas Vocational Training Center. First of all, looking at the challenges of that in Lithuania, I would underline two of them, which was addressed by the other speakers. One of them is attractiveness of vocational education and training, as the previous speaker told. In Lithuania as well, for the last 50 years, higher education has been as a valuable education for young people. And I would say it's not only a pity, but also sometimes is a waste of money, waste of time for young people, because later on they still search for their career path to be open, and they will come back to our vocational education. But this status show that every year in Lithuania we have 20,000 of students recruited to that, the same amount recruited to higher education, but only 1/5 of mature graduates come to vocational education and students. Nevertheless, the majority of programs are based on EQF level 4, which is for students after they mature. So it brings for that certain pool of students which are not that highly academically motivated. The other challenge is relevance of vocational education to the labor market, as still nowadays quite a lot of employers believe that VET should provide students with a graduate which would fit exactly to their job places, the job they require. And in Lithuania, we have the privilege as directors of the school, of that school, which we are the ones who expresses the need, and we are the ones who can hire the person we see we need. But every time we are looking for a good teacher, because the good teacher is a key of the success of that school, we put them so big attitudes that he or she has to possess. We feel that he has to have mastery on his field. Besides, he has to be good a teacher to have pedagogical or didactical knowledge. And besides that, he has to be nice as a person, modern, charming, and the one who would invite and motivate the students. Every time then we have such a huge number of attitudes we ask for. On the other hand, we have to give something in exchange. And in my school, at least as a change, I believe that we provide these teachers for supportive enough conditions. That is, we provide them with nice, friendly infrastructure. We provide teachers with the teaching learning material we need to express their mastery. At one point, one may say that it has to be this way, but also witnesses that it's not always this way. Another thing which teacher puts quite a lot of efforts, but it's not maybe their real job, is the high level of bureaucracy and quite huge document workload. So to solve these problems, we provide these teachers with the assistance in the paper, and I believe it helps them. Besides that, also what is important is a good microclimate in the institution they work, that these teachers, they have to be not only accepted, but to feel well. And the only thing how to get this valuable the person who would attract and motivate the students to be the agents of their profession is cooperation with all kinds of associations. In Lithuania, we have quite a number of main employers associations, but also we have much more sectoral associations who work with this pool of teachers with masters in their own field. So high links, in most cases, personal relationships are very valuable to my mind. And in my school, we have quite a huge number of teachers whose school is extra job. So it is that these teachers, they work in a business, in a private business, and come to school. Then they are able to, of course, on a scheduled time, but then they feel they are ready to express the mastery, that they can provide the relevant knowledge and skill with the things which are done outside the school right now at the very time. And another good aspect of this extra job, the school is an extra job, is that these teachers, they are mentors for the students. Then the students go for practical training in the enterprises. And also cooperation with all stakeholders, association or just institution, it provides a bigger range of apprenticeship for the school students to take, because this is, I believe, one of the key elements for good, smooth transition to the labor market. One of last but not least, but I believe very strongly powered things is that school would be open and provide teachers and student teams to all kinds of cups, championships, fairs, where they can show their mastery. And the last but not least very important thing is media or the publicity that would show the way these teachers are high enough in their profession. And this is also the link to attract students, more motivated students to that institution who would value their profession itself. So I can see it as a round circle. And therefore, I tell, whenever you are sad that your collaboration is not working the way it is, you should be more active and believe much more in yourself, because only doing the job, only putting your own initiative will give the results for you. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Nora. I would like to ask the colleagues to show us the answers to the second slide of Paul. So the question was, what do you think are the biggest challenges in vocational education and training in your country nowadays? Funding, low salary, working hours, teaching methods, teacher support, stress and burnout, teachers training, working conditions, gender inequality, school equipments, stress, valorization. Interesting. So as you know that these works, like how many people answer the same, it is bigger. So I can see its funding and low salary are the biggest. And I would like to ask you, dear presenters, what is your opinion? What were your choices of the biggest challenges issue? And also I could see that there are questions here. There is a comment from a Serbian teacher unions, Borka, that VET is more complex than other part of the education system, and it asks for more cooperation of many stakeholders. What kind of support is predicted in various countries, and what is the role of pedagogical experts in support to teachers? And I guess I understand most probably Borka means pedagogical experts would like teaching assistants and other support staff, for example, guidance workers, those who can focus also on individual needs, because we know that vocational education training sometimes it's more attractive for or more available for those who are coming from a different social economic background. So there are lots of issues here to consider. I would like to ask who would like to take the floor if you have any comments on these challenges.
Maybe Agnes, I would just I could complement that from this pilot survey of ed teachers that we have undertaken in 2022, actually these same findings came out. So it's interesting to see also that they were discussing challenges of well-being, of stress, burnout, funding, the access to quality and relevant continued professional development. So it's interesting to see how our survey and the findings also align with what we see in this slide today.
Okay, thank you. Arya?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, I think that salaries definitely play a decisive role. Of course, you have to pay people adequately for the job they are doing. If they see that in other jobs in the same level of education, people earn a lot more money, then why should they stay in that profession? I mean, that's a very logical reaction. Especially as we know that it's a very demanding profession. Yeah? When it comes to cooperation, I mean, we can see that everywhere in life that things are easier if you cooperate with others and you don't have to do everything yourself. One of the problems of our current education system is that we teach our children to be very independent, but independent to a point where teamwork is not on the agenda any longer. Yeah, and I think that is something that we have to take into consideration. We cannot expect people to be able to collaborate and to cooperate if we have never taught them, because it's not something that just falls from heaven. It's something that you learn. And if in schools we reward children for being always the best and better than everybody else and not reward them for cooperating with each other, how do you expect people then to have these skills later on? So I think that is an important point that needs to change in the education system as such. It also has to do with assessment of how we assess work in school, and then maybe we can take this further. But I think we have seen with the big problems that we are facing in the world today, and not least to mention climate change, nobody will solve this issue on his or her own, not even one country. I think it's only by cooperating all together. Yeah? And I think this has always been the case. That idea has got lost somewhere on the way.
Thank you very much, Arya. I agree with you. Nathan, what is your opinion on this?
Yes, sorry, I would add something also. I think one of the challenges also, and especially for the students, it's about where is the focus from the training provider side and the employers, and also definitely from the state in terms of what do they put the focus in funding the apprenticeship and the VET trainings. I think the problem is that today it's based on what are the market needs, and especially at the local level, but not based on what are the aspirations of the students. And we can see that on what are the different trainings proposed, but also directly during the trainings on what is the space that is given to the students in the decision making, and especially on the curriculum, and what is the space that is given to the companies, to the employers, and to the staff of the training centers. I think it's quite concerning to see that sometimes we have, as students and as learners and as VET students and apprentices, we have none or almost none space in this decision making, and when it's about our education and our training, and I think it's really concerning. Also, I think there is something about it was mentioned also, I think, by one of the colleagues, that we are workers in VT and apprenticeship because we work on a workplace, but we are still workers when we are in training and when we are at school. I think we should also reconsider the learners as in training workers, and that if we get trained, and this is true for the VET and apprenticeship, but also for the secondary general high school, we are learning and getting trained and educated to later enter the labor market. That's the today reality in the system. And we need to consider that and to give to the learners the status they deserve. So it means that we should be able in any country and at any level to unionize just as same as any other worker, and have the same rights of representation and defending our comrades on the classroom and at different levels, and also in the company when there is problem, and the right to representation and all those rights. And lastly, I would say that it's also one of the challenges is about, and this is more on the challenges for the teaching, the staff shortages. It's about the teacher status. At least in France, I can tell that in the VET sector and apprenticeship, the teachers doesn't have the same status as they do in the public secondary high school. They are not employed by the state in the same way, not by the same ministry. It's not the Ministry of Education, but it's the Ministry of Labor, sometimes the Ministry of Agriculture, depending. And they do not have at all the same rights, the same salaries, the same working conditions. And this is, I think, also a big point on understanding why there is also like that much staff shortages. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nathan, for mentioning about the rights of apprentices and especially of allowing them to unionize also as workers, because this is what also mentioned in the Council recommendation on the quality framework of quality and effective apprenticeship, which I put here the link. And it also mentions about 14 quality elements which every companies and every policy makers should respect concerning providing good working conditions, good health and safety, good payment for the apprentices who should be considered both as learners and workers at the same time. But this quality framework also mentions about the professional development of teachers. And I would like to ask your opinion, all of your presenters here, because there is in the education training monitor an idea of about how to lower the skill gap, how to lower the shortage of teachers by alternative pathways, by attracting different other professionals to the vocational education institution. And we had a previous webinar today when we discussed that, okay, but why would a professional from an industry sector come to vocational education when the teacher salary is not so much attractive? And at the same time, we are also expecting that vocational teachers who are providing the professional skills to the students should improve their skills and keep in track with the company developments. But at the same time, it's very difficult to get continuous professional development for vocational teachers into companies. What is your opinion? Do you think it is really realistic, and to what extent it can be possible to even attract professionals to vocational education and training? I know that in Austria it's possible, but of course these people need to have a 2 years compulsory training on pedagogy. But how do you think, is it rather a backwards tendency of going to teachers from the industries, Or is it possible really industry people to gain the necessary training to be teachers? And is teaching profession really attractive?
Yes, Agnes. As Arya just said, teaching profession is very, very demanding. And for example, in Portugal, some authors, and not only in Portugal, they say that there are too many missions in the teaching profession. This is very difficult. But in Portugal, there have been some attempts to catch people from the industry, from workers, from companies. But if the conditions are not attractive, it's very, very difficult to catch those people. And then there's another question with young people, because it's very, very difficult in Portugal to catch these young people and make them join the teaching profession. For example, it's not only the question of salaries, but of course salaries are very important. But it's the question, for example, of the distance they have. To work in schools, for example, it's very, very difficult for them to conciliate, for example, a very low salary with working like 200 and 300 kilometers away from home. There is the question of rents, which it's a very important issue in Portugal and in other countries in Europe, like in Ireland, in Greece, and in most of the countries with a lot of tourism. But if conditions are not attractive, all attempts will be very, very difficult to gain some good results.
Thank you very much, Joachim. I see Nathan's hand and Arya's hand on. Is it new? Yes. Before giving you the floor, I would like to ask the colleagues to open the third Slido question. What do you think are the ingredients of good collaborative education leadership in the vocational education and training sector in your country? So what are the ingredients? What is necessary to have good collaborative leadership? And while you are answering, all of you, I would like to give the floor to Nathan, still about the question about how the profession is really attractive and for whom.
Thank you. I'll make it quicker this time. Now, I just wanted to mention that I think it's, in this case, still about the globally about the working condition of the teachers. And I would like to mention a specific thing. I think that it's also about teachers indeed, and especially in the VET and apprentices sector. Also, I think because it's about technical skills, and that can be a bit make the difference between the higher general secondary schools, where you could, I think you still also have the willingness to continue learning, and I think it's really important to promote this lifelong learning approach. And in this sense, I think it's important to give teachers to allocate them time to continue their training. In this sense, I think one concrete measure could be lowering the weekly working time of the teachers, which also allows a best repartition of the work in general in the country, and then which means that there is less unemployment, because if people work less, we can employ more people to do the different tasks. For example, having more teachers in the training centers in the schools, that for each of them less. And I think it's also a question of working less to allow more time, as I said, to upskills, all of this, but also to engage more within schools functioning with the Council of Administration, with all of decision-making body, but also to have more time to live in general apart from work and teaching and all. And I think it's also important to see that with teachers that continue to upskill and to also be always learning, because I think it's really important to have this lifelong learning approach. Then you also have a better training that is given to the students, because those teachers are up to date to the new teaching methods and to the new skills that you might have and learn in those areas. Yeah, that is it for me.
Thank you very much, Arya.
Yes, I think it brings us back again to the question of cooperation, yeah, because of course it needs consensus on how much time a person who works in a company can spend actually in teaching in a school, yeah, and vice versa. It's very difficult also in countries that have a high level of SMEs, because for small and medium size enterprises, it's difficult to let somebody go for like 10 hours a week to teach at a school. On the other hand, for the same SMEs, it's absolutely essential to have good educated and well-educated students that will later on come back and work in their companies. So I think we have to understand that this is not that these things don't work in silos. These are circles, yeah. So if I don't invest at one point, it will fall on our head at a different moment. So coming together and asking ourselves, how can we best solve this together, and maybe putting each of the companies, especially the small and medium-sized companies, each one person, maybe for only 5 hours per week, into a school, yeah, will benefit everybody and will, in the end, produce, if you like, the necessary skilled workers that they need in the next round. Yeah. So I think it's coming together and agreeing on how do we imagine the future, and everybody chipping in, because of course I can say I don't have the means to do that, and then I take myself out. But if nobody does that, then we will not have the skilled workers that we need later on. Yeah? So I think it's about coming together, finding consensus. This is also why the social partners, in my opinion, play such a decisive role in this, yeah, because they need to negotiate these conditions and understand who does what and how, in order to make this possible. And one of the points that was also mentioned today was the bureaucracy. Bureaucracy in general is a huge problem in all our schools, not only in the vocational education and training, also in primary schools, secondary schools, wherever I go, the teachers really complain about the huge bureaucracy that they have to go through. And it was mentioned at a different meeting this morning when somebody said, yeah, we all thought that with AI and digitalization, this would become easier, and it has not. Yeah. So I think we need to recognize this and maybe take a step back and say, okay, this is where we are. How can we really make this easier for people so that they can concentrate on teaching and training and not having to fill in thousands of documents, lists, and whatever?
Okay, thank you very much, Arya. And of course, your example was interesting about let's put some company representations but to the schools. But you as parents, you also know that not everyone can be a teacher. I mean, I'm a former teacher. I know it is important even to those presenters who are regularly come and have a cooperation with the schools to really know pedagogy and really be there also the vocational teachers on that. I can see there is a debate here about hybrid teachers, but also there is a question about cooperation between parents and teachers in some countries, because there are lots of issues with parents questioning our behavior. I guess teachers' behavior, I don't know. Before answering to that question, I think this is closely linked towards the big question of collaboration. So I would like to ask the colleagues to show us the answer of the responses to the slide of 3. Okay, what do you think are the ingredients of good collaborative educational leadership? Communication, social dialogue, of course, whole school approach, trust, all involved, proper structures, industry recognition, decision-making, time to talk, teamwork, participation, democratic governance, many answers. Who would like to take the floor? And when you are taking the floor, I also would like to ask you kind of like your final summary of also how do you think that teachers, education employers, students, parents are really heard well? But I also would like to ask CEDEFOP, Rena, how do you think our researchers are really heard well concerning collaboration? Because we discussed in the previous webinar too about decision makings and making political choices based on good research. So who would like to take the floor first?
Yes, we know it's not easy. Yeah? My grandfather used to say, life is beautiful, easy has never been on the agenda. So I think we all need to understand that it is a difficult job. It's a difficult job already to raise a child and to bring it up to a responsible citizen. And this is a collaborative endeavor. In any case, it's not for nothing that we say it takes a village to raise a child, and the school, of course, is part of the village. Yeah, the parents are part of the village, but also the community outside is part of the village. So again, we come back to this cooperation, and the question for me, or the most important thing, is trust. Yeah. Now, this has existed, and it has declined with whatever reasons. Yeah. And I think we need to rebuild this trust. Yeah. Parents need to have trust in the school again, in the teachers again, but teachers also need to communicate with parents and help and support parents. Parents today are faced with a multitude of tasks. They are not embedded any longer in a big family where they can go back to grandparents and other family members to ask questions, because very often they are on their own. Sometimes it's even one single parent on their own. They have to work in order to gain sufficient resources in order to maintain the family. So they are faced with a lot of challenges. And I think it also here can only work if we mutually support each other. Yeah, because otherwise I don't see how this can be made possible for, especially for children. Yeah, because the children are, and we know that, the most vulnerable part of the whole equation. And we, in order to put the child in the center of attention, the learner in the center of attention, we need to come together and make this work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aria. So I also understand that the answer to the question here is the chat is also to get to know each other's difficulties, problems, and really work of each other. I would like then to give the floor, because I don't see any presenter to raise hand, but then I would like to give the floor for a final comment to Joachim.
Thank you, Agnes. In fact, as Aria says, there are many problems in the teaching profession. And besides the question of bureaucratization, which is in all Europe, I suppose in all the world now, it provokes workload on the profession, which is not very good. But in fact, collaboration is needed in schools. For example, in my country, teachers feel they do not have enough time to work together in schools. And so school leaders and teachers and schools, they must get the best way in order they can cooperate in their work. And of course, in this subject, the professional autonomy is something we all need in all countries of Europe.
Thank you very much. This is very important, the professional autonomy, to really get in touch with each other, even though it is required by no one, because maybe, I don't know, the hierarchy doesn't feel it important or considers it too dangerous or too sensitive. Rena?
Yes, regarding your point on research and up to what extent we can claim to have evidence-based policy making, if I understood well your question, Agnes, I could say that at CEDEFOP we're very well placed to argue and to claim that indeed all our research on vocational education and training feeds, for example, into Education and Training Monitoring 2023, as you may see, it feeds into all related commissions, communications, council conclusions. So yes, we are in the heart of bridging research with policymaking, and I would say, and Agnes, you may confirm, that we also try to involve as much as possible social partners now in our research. We try to involve you and FEE in our projects, and thus also benefit of those very, very interesting projects that you also have and the research that you also conduct. So I think that we play a very complementary role, and we can claim that we do help to evidence-based policy making, but research gaps still exist. In the Education Training Monitor in 2023, you may see that still there is not an indicator and data to measure teacher shortages. We cannot accurately measure this across Europe, so we don't have data to be able to tackle this phenomenon in a targeted way. And also it's still not known, for example, what can make really effective continuing professional development of ed professionals. To this, I hope CEDEFOP will be able to contribute with a new survey, as I said before. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I can see Nathan's hand up. I would like to give you only 1 minute, and then I still would like to ask Nora's opinion.
Okay, so yeah, I do very quick now. I think it's important to keep the whole school approach, as I mentioned already, and to really set the settings are in the first place very clear, and that are, as I was mentioning, that there is a good repartition of the voice of each, whether it is the students, the parents, the teachers, and in the case of the VET and apprenticeships, the also companies and all. Yeah, I think it's important both with about the representatives and the institutions, but also at the local level. I will keep it short. Thank you.
Thank you. And the final words from Nora.
I will be very short. I do believe that for variable VET collaborative partnership is crucial thing, but on the other side, in this fight, every group has its own piece, and it must somehow happen that every group must take their responsibility from the beginning till the very end, and not somewhere to stop in the middle. So that's the only way how I see that we can achieve something, that everybody would play their role responsibly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I understand everyone should really know what is their role to fulfill their role, but also to have regular collaborations with the others when it is definitely needed. I would like to really thank you, all of you, for your presentations and for involving in this webinar, and for these excellent ideas and this discussion. I really thank you for a lot of ideas, and basically what I would like to really conclude is this, what you were saying just last. If we all know our work, if we have the professional autonomy, there is a possibility, and there is a very, very big importance of collaboration and learn from the other stakeholders their needs and wishes, and to have a compromise among each other of how to move forward in the future. I would like to thank you again, and thanks also for the participants for their active contributions. If you would like to participate in the ELNA network activities, it's possible. You can propose a research outcome, you can propose as inspiring cases, you can also propose as topics for the next webinars, and we are available for all of these ideas, and you can follow us in the ELNA network website for seeing our other actions. Thank you very much, and I really hope that you can join to other webinars, specifically the one in 13 minutes on higher education, which I will be moderating again. Thank you very much. Have a nice afternoon. Bye-bye.